Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wednesday night, we held a teleconference meeting for the Heritage Committee, and we were given a rundown on the Heritage Trust account. And the other night, we were given a number available for fiscal year 2014 for projects of $477,741.28. And that's with a principal of $615,955 that was put in, and 75% of that plus the interest gives us that number. And then we also discussed, we'll be talking more about it tomorrow on item 12E for the seasons. We had some suggestions from the department and from Commissioner Robb. We discussed some of this stuff, and one of the big changes we made was on the seasons for the mule deer, the pronghorn, Rocky Mountain elk, and the bighorn sheep, of making the season run from the beginning of the license year through the last day of February the following year. And we can discuss the merits of that tomorrow. That was our recommendation to bring to the commission, so we'll be hearing more about that tomorrow, I'm sure. And we have a deadline of March 1st, I believe it was, for the fiscal year 14 projects applications. So that's coming up here pretty quick. If anybody's got any of those they need to get in. And then we'll be holding another meeting prior to the May commission meeting to review those projects. So I'm just kind of putting that out there for the cabs to put that on the radar screen for that May meeting. We're going to be discussing that. And that's all I've got.
Anybody have anything? Commissioner Rain?
Question, Mr. Committee Chair. Well, you know my question, but I'll say it for the record, is at the last meeting we had been discussed by the committee and by the commission about the different projects, and one thing that was brought up was the study we'd come up with. And the department had not chosen to provide us with all of the proper reports, which they had said they had provided us with. And so I provided one portion of that, but has the committee been able to see the database associated with that? And has that database been brought forward? Because it's database of NDOW numbers. I have not yet seen that. Has that been discussed at the committee?
Well, the way I understood it, Commissioner Rain, is you had found it on the internet.
It was provided to the Department of Wildlife.
And I have not seen it. I still have not seen it. You had a copy of it at the meeting.
Because I'd asked staff.
You'd found it on the internet, you know, and I kind of looked around for it, but unless you know exactly what you're looking for, good luck finding it. So if you could get me that link where we could look at it, I'd love to see it. And I haven't had it come to me as a member of the Heritage Committee. And as far as I know, none of my committee members have received it either.
All right.
So if it's out there, I'd love to see it. But
to me,
I have not seen it.
Sorry. To me, that is virtually criminal on behalf of the Department of Wildlife to not provide that information to the members of this commission and therefore to the public. It was paid for by the public through the Heritage. We were promised this information to come out. Why? I mean, I brought it up last time. Hey, why are you hiding this? Come on, here's the report. Oh, well, we didn't know that. Department of Wildlife did know about it. They did get links to it. They paid for it. If they hadn't have paid for it, that would have been criminal. Come on. This is out there. The Department of Wildlife should have that. I'll send you the link to when I get home. I had not had a request for that yet by anybody. Now it's been requested. I'll go ahead and forward it. The department has it. They paid for it. They'd best have it. And by not including that information that is in it, which is Department of Wildlife information, it is NDOW's numbers only. And that is what is in that report. In the database, not the report. The report is a summation. That is a very valuable tool with which you make these biological decisions. When we claim we're utilizing the best scientific data available, I don't think so, because you're not even looking at it, and it's not been made available to the commission by the department. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I might point out that at the last meeting I read you the executive summary section of that report, and it quote unquote said that it didn't disagree or contradict anything the department had previously published. So I'm sure the staff will provide that to you as you're going through your process of looking at. There's nothing in there relative to how we conduct business, because it's already incorporated in what we do.
Thank you. I would like to see the database. I mean, that's obviously what we're having an issue with here. We had the other information, but the database apparently is the thing we're looking for. I don't know what we're going to get from it, but
Sure.
if it show up, it'd be interesting.
Yeah. In fact, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like Tony to come up quickly and
Please.
Clarify something for you.
As far as the database goes, there is no formal database. The data that was provided that accompanied the report was nothing more than a series of Excel spreadsheets that contain data that the department provided the project proponent. There is no database. They're spreadsheets, not a database by definition of what a database is and how a database works. No analysis of those data, presentation of those data, and those data were data that were provided to the proponent by the department. We'd be more than happy to present electronic or paper copies of those data to the commission at the March meeting if you so desire.
That'd probably help us. Thank you. Commissioner Macbeth.
Yes, a follow-up question to that is, did the project proponent comply with the terms of the project to provide something, and he has not done so? That's a question that needs to be asked. Maybe the committee should be looking at that, because what I just heard is we got back what we gave them.
basically.
Commissioner Rain.
I think I can maybe clarify that, is that was the whole point. The Department of Wildlife's data, and I mean, you can define a database in a weird and twisted manner, but database is a bunch of data on a spreadsheet or in some other format. Last I checked, I'd call that a database. You want to call it something else, you want to call it a bunch of spreadsheets, well, most databases I've seen are probably, you might be able to call them a bunch of spreadsheets. Whatever, that's terminology. This information has never been provided to the commission, nor did it exist in a digital format in this way. It had been in an ad hoc, a few sheets here, a few sheets there. This group, if you'll remember, and you guys were sitting here in the meetings, they had a real problem getting the data from the Department of Wildlife because a lot of it was in handwritten format. It was not in an electronic format that could be easily utilized for the purposes of statistical analysis. The department did not have the data in a format that could be statistically analyzed, and that's why the commission at the time thought that it was vital that that information be put into that format. If the commission would have already had that information and would have provided that information anytime, and it was requested on multiple occasions and it never was forthcoming, and it's very disingenuous of the department to go out here and say that well, they just gave us a couple spreadsheets. No. And the whole point was to bring back the Endow data. It was never designed in the particular project that we're talking about to be analyzed. That was another step that is another story and never happened. That step was to provide that information in digital format. Thank you.
Mr. Wallace.
The project proponents clearly stated analysis as an objective of that project. The department's position at the time that the proposal was made was that it would be very difficult to do. However, we committed significant personnel time to the project, met with the proponents on multiple occasions, and provided them with all of the data, which is the same data that's provided through our big game hunt status books that's provided to the commission as well as county advisory board members and the public. It's my understanding that there, at the time, was no mechanism in place that would allow for the department to withhold payment pending receipt of products. As a matter of fact, it was relatively new terrain to be actually funding a project, but it was the commission's desire to pursue that and to fund that project despite cautions by the department, which are well documented. And now we're at the point where the department is apparently shouldering the blame for not producing something that they did not receive, but yet caution the commission that we likely wouldn't receive. We're more than happy to share the spreadsheets that we got, but they're the same data that we provided the proponent.
Commissioner McNish.
So we're missing an analysis on the project.
There are some descriptive paragraphs in the report, but there isn't anything that I can tell that I guess would represent any kind of a statistical analysis, anything other than some descriptive summaries of the data that they were provided.
Well, with that in mind, I guess, considering the knot holes that other proponents have been pulled through, we probably ought to consider going back and evaluating it and make sure that we got what we paid for. We might ought to ask for our legal counsel to provide us some guidance at some point, whether that's today or at a future meeting, on the best way to go about doing that.
One of the problems we have identified, because we're learning as we go along and how to fund these projects and monitor them and whatnot, we don't really have a mechanism to say no, so they got payment in full whether they turned in their final report or not. We need another mechanism to withhold a certain portion of the contract until we get the final report and it's been reviewed and whatnot. And I just mentioned that to Dag Newton. I'm not sure that at this point, if we identify that he didn't provide entirely the things that he said he was going to provide, whether we can actually get any money back from the thing. So I assume that just a learning exercise, we'll move on and won't do that again. And fortunately, if you remember, his follow-on project had been funded, and then he wrote a letter stating basically he was going to drop the idea and didn't need the money. We reallocated it, as you recall. So.
Yeah, I see plenty of consultants and contractors in the room, and I know I don't get paid when I turn in a project. It's a long time after the project's turned in, so hopefully, there's not only retention on my money. I have to have it done and signed off, and there's multiple steps before money's released to me as a contractor. So hopefully we can get some of those in so we get some review of stuff before we start releasing it.
And it was $40,000, so it was not insignificant.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to get back to the Heritage account instead of Dr. Maxim's report. One of the most disheartening things is knowing that we have the Silver State money in there and we're selling tags at decent prices, not great prices, but in 2006 we had $678,000 to put towards projects, and even with the Silver State tag money in, we were down to $477,000. So you start looking at that and going, where's our money going? Our principal's gone up. In 2006 we had $4,493,000. Today we have $6,171,000. In 2006 we got $211,000 in interest. Last year we got $15,000. That's where our money's going. We got a lot of money sitting there doing nothing. We like to protect that money. We call it our nest egg, whatever you want to call it, but it is $6 million sitting there getting us $15,000 a year. That's a lot of sportsman dollars doing absolutely nothing. So it's sportsman dollars. We don't want to go anyplace else. I know there's been runs at it in the past, looking at it to use for other things, and they've pretty much said, no, that's sportsman dollars, but maybe we need to explore a way that we can use some of that money too, because we definitely aren't getting our value out of that $6 million sitting there. All right, any other comments?
Manager for the money. Is there a fund manager, Mr. Chairman?
What's that?
Is there a fund manager for the money? Do they invest it, or?
My understanding is there is not fund managers for state dollars. They have to be invested in a particular manner that is extremely secure. So extremely secure investments mean no return right now.
And the other thing we've kicked around, Ken Mayor for the record, is maybe having legislation to allow more money for you guys to put on the ground. Of course, the big danger to that, especially in these fiscal times, is that you start making sausage. And that's a scary proposition too. So we have to put it in an interest-bearing account, and it's kind of like your money sitting in the money market and making less than 1%.
0.25%. So.
2.26.
All right, any other comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to 6A.